Team. We've got a little bit of housekeeping to take care of before we can get on with our Dark Side of the Ring series today because, well, I don't know if you were watching earlier today, but the fact of the matter is Michigan, U of M, Michigan, alma mater of the great Rick and Scott Steiner, won the national title in football. We just gotta play him a little song here for the great U of M. Victor's Valiant, y'all. Look at that picture of Scott and Rick. It's a great picture right there. They look good with some tag team belts, you know? Those folks from Michigan, they're winners. We might just have to put some straps on our boys. Give them some belts today. But this, while that may happen, this episode is not about the Steiner brothers. It is about Dynamite Kid. The dark side of Dynamite. Fun fact, the Nobel Prize, the guy who invented it, Alfred Nobel, also invented dynamite. Anyway, that's not the dynamite we're talking about today. The dynamite we're talking about today was just as explosive, though, both in the ring and out. And you know what? We're not at a show yet, so let's just get right into it.
I see people who
Dark side
emulate him,
of Dynamite Kid.
but in my mind, nobody did it better than Tommy.
The Dynamite Kid, baby!
He was the beginning of the modern style of pro wrestling.
My mom told me all the time, your dad was the best.
What I was most impressed with was how explosive he was.
With extraordinary agility and technical mastery, the Dynamite Kid took the wrestling world by storm. His need to be the best was fueled by an intense desire to overcome his small stature by pushing his body to dangerous extremes.
When Tommy found himself in the land of giants, the way to stand out was to make his style more realistic, harder hitting than anybody else's.
You really got banged up, Dynamite. What goes around comes around. It's a dog-eat-dog world.
There's things that you can do that are going to destroy your body. And he did. He destroyed his body young.
And that's the willingness to sacrifice for the sake of your art, which Tommy took to an extreme.
Debilitating injuries, steroid abuse, and a dependency on painkillers made Dynamite an increasing threat to himself and those around him.
I'm telling you,
The only person in the company that has a chance of making friends with Dynamite Kid is Rick Steiner.
I think he probably had the
So far.
worst case of little man syndrome in the history of the world.
Everybody knew not to push his buttons because you would feel his wrath.
We'll out-wrestle you, we'll embarrass you, we'll humiliate
And Shane Douglas.
He really punched me and then he ended up kicking me in the face and he was like a monster.
There was terrible things that he did to me, but that was like
And the
a
Warrior.
small chunk of it. And I can't imagine.
Who has the dark side of the ring of his own?
For her having a gun at your head. Everybody else who did way worse, they get their accolades, and Tom doesn't.
I still have the ability to watch his matches and enjoy them, but people still praise him publicly, and it's like I can't do it.
He has sacrificed his body, his family, everything for wrestling.
No positive benefit there. Not this time.
The Dynamite Kid's impact, gigantic. I think he left an unbelievable permanent mark on the business, and for the most part, a positive one on the business. I'm Lance Storm. I'm a professional wrestler for 30 years.
28-year-old Lance Storm.
I think if you're a fan of wrestling today with the faster pace, higher impact, I think that's attributed to Dynamite.
The Dynamite Kid!
And all of those guys in Stampede, you know, Bret Hart.
Bret Hart, there's your opponent for next week. Oh, they're both over the top.
Stampede Wrestling and the Calgary Stampede, those are the two.
Arguably
things that
more Bret
Calgary's
Hart than
famous
Dynamite.
for. My
Arguably.
name's Michelle Billington. I used to be married to the Dynamite Kid. One day
leave a
when my
comment.
sister
We can
Julie
argue about it.
and I first came to Calgary, Julie saw Brett and she was like, who's that guy? Oh my God. And it was love at first sight for both of them.
I'm Julie Hart. I'm the former wife of Brett the Hitman Hart and the sister of Michelle Billington. I kind of took Michelle under my wing. I've always been very protective of her whole life.
Julie was more like a mother to me than my mother. She was like my hero. And I started living with them, and when I first saw Tom in the ring, it was with Brett. They were incredible matches, and Tom was like a ping pong ball just flying around the ring.
Pulls him over!
So then when Tom wasn't wrestling, he would stand behind me and talk to me, and I would just like surreptitiously, like, yeah, hey, how's it going? Good match. And he's like, yeah, thank you, thank you. So we went for a walk, and it was so romantic. Like it was that big fluffy snow that was coming down, and it was like a blanket of diamonds, and I just thought he was so exotic because he had that English accent. So I had this big romantic idea of that suave, debonair Englishman. I was 18 when he married me. So let's read this one. Michelle, I can tell you this little secret now because we're married. I think that you will believe me. And the next thing on my mind is that we will have some babies. Wrong win. But only when you are ready. I wish that is soon, because when I'm on the road, the babies can look after you. All for now. I love you more than ever. Your ever-loving yard dog, Tom. And he didn't hold Bronwyn until she could walk. Like, he didn't actually pick her up because he was so scared to drop her or hurt her.
My name is Bronwyn Billington. I'm the eldest daughter of Tom Billington, the Dynamite Kid. We had a wrestling ring in our backyard, so he'd always be training his friends or just wrestling around with his buddies.
So, while we're still here in the positive section, just kind of explaining who Dynamite is. Who he is for our purposes in my company. He works a machine gimmick, wrestling machine. So, we have a technical wizard and a wrestling machine between Owen and Tom, as he's known. Or Tommy. And essentially, they're going to go up against the pretentious artist Shane Douglas and the maniac Mick Foley. Franchise and Foley is a really cool tag team. I like how basically they have a slow, methodical guy and a more of a brawling style kind of all out kind of a guy in Mick Foley. So this is going to be a storytelling match. We're going to try and get the babyfaces over. We're going to build up to the end, just to that point where the crowd is believing that the heels have this, the babyfaces have no chance. We really want to get the crowd behind Dynamite this episode. So we saw last time out for Owen and Taz, that was a loss for them on the side of Taz, or on the side of Owen, actually. Taz left Owen in the ring. So this is going to kind of reaffirm that Dynamite still has Owen's back, and just kind of continue to progress the storyline with Owen. Owen Dynamite as well as Taz. But yeah, so this should be a nice one. Owen doesn't pick up the win. Dynamite's going to get it today. And yeah. They're going to squeeze the life out of the baby faces. Make those people get behind them, Some good heel behavior from Franchise and Foley.
And we used to play in there as
Now let's see some heel behavior from Dynamite.
I remember being backstage at the wrestling shows. Randy Savage
Base
and
stuff
Miss
so
Elizabeth.
far.
They loved me for some reason. I think I just wanted to hang out with them, really. My dad was a really funny, goofy guy.
I'd just like to tell you about this woman. She's mean, she's lean, He's 205 pounds of fighting fury. She's got 17-inch biceps, 95-inch legs, and she's muscle, steel, and sex appeal.
He had no teeth at one point. He had like the retainer teeth, and he'd pull them out and like do tricks on me, so I thought he was magic. If you look at any of the pictures with my father and I growing up, he was always holding my hand really tight as a little girl. I think that's a sign of like how much he loved his daughter.
When I was younger, my mom would tell me, oh my God, you're so much like your dad, because I learned how to do flips all by myself. I thought he could fly. Like, I've never really seen a wrestler that could do all that. My name's Amaris Billington, and I am the Dynamite Kid's youngest daughter. And I'm just so proud of him for who he was in his career, and he didn't care if someone said you're too small. He's like, watch me.
By the 1980s, the Dynamite Kid is not only one of Stampede Wrestling's top performers, he's also catapulted himself to superstardom on the other side of the globe.
And some of the greatest matches took place in front of small crowds in Japan. My name is Mick Foley. I wrestled from 1985 through 2000 and made several comebacks. There was a series of moves that he did with Satoru Sayama, the original Tiger Mask. And it looked like magic. It wasn't what they did. It was the speed with which they did it and the excellence of execution that was amazing. I perused that on VHS tape the way that most young men of my generation perused the Phoebe Cates topless scene in Fast Times at Ridgemont High. I rewound it and slow motioned it so often that it broke.
The in-ring product that we see today starts with him in Tiger Mask. My name is Dave Meltzer. I'm the editor of the Wrestling Observer newsletter. I do podcasts at WrestlingObserver.com. There is no Jushin Liger without Tiger Mask and Dynamite Kid. You know, that opens the door for Eddie Guerrero and Chris Benoit and Owen Hart and all of these different guys who came after and patterned themselves after him. I think he always had a chip on his shoulder as far as size, and you know, he wanted to be the best, and at his size you had to overperform because it was not what wrestling turned into years later where a guy his size was acceptable.
If you were looking for illusions, Tommy was a bunch of things, but a magician was not one of them. If it looked good and it looked like it hurt, it's probably because it did.
It was amazing to see. In hindsight, when you think about it, it's like, oh yeah, he just had no regard for his body.
In 1984, the Dynamite Kid's fearlessness in the ring pays off as he signs with the WWF, joining cousin Davey Boy Smith, brother-in-law Bret Hart, and Jim the Anvil Neidhart. In order to compete at the top, Tom continues to push the limits of his body.
Tom's physical changes came once he went to WWE. You know, he'd been doing a lot of steroids at the time.
The Dynamite Kid!
Physically, described Tommy as one big muscle. He's like Mighty Mouse. This guy had striations in his butt. Muscles just ripping out of his ass. I mean, the guy was just nothing but a pure muscle. My name is Dan Spivey. I'm a friend of Dynamite Kids.
Danny Spivey, of course.
People paid money to come see a bunch of muscular guys beat on each other. Oh, yeah, we talked about steroids and did steroids, you know.
Everybody was taking. My name's Gary Ports. I came over to America and started wrestling.
That's the truth. Everybody was.
And I met Dynamite Kid.
Scott McGee. Here he comes. Oh.
We got along, Danny, myself, and Dynamite. Every day was Christmas. Every day was like a party.
People would come to one room and give each other shots and stuff and throw the needles into the wall like a dartboard and leave them there.
Me and Danny, one time we woke up, I looked at the wall and there must be 10 needles stuck in the wall.
I mean, who does that? Dumbass wrestlers, you know.
With his new muscular physique, Dynamite's explosiveness in the ring makes him a breakout star in the WWF. By 1985, he and his tag team partner Davey Boy Smith are packing arenas around the country.
Here are the British Bulldog.
Davey Boy Smith was his cousin. You know, in many ways emulated him. Kind of same look. People went crazy because they were great.
Davey Boy and Dynamite, and they...
A much harder, faster style than almost everybody else there.
We all wanted to be the Bulldogs. They were gods of wrestling. I remember Dynamite doing that fast suplex.
Snap suplex.
Boom, you were gone, boy, before you knew it. My name is Jacques Rougeau. For 41 years, I was a professional wrestler. I was the fabulous Rougeau brothers with my brother Raymond.
The Rougeau brothers.
Fabulous Rougeau brothers.
The fabulous Rougeau brothers.
I remember Dynamite Kid one night just walking in the dressing room with a needle in his butt. Needle sticky going like this, and he'd go, "I'm gonna have a good fucking match tonight!" And you know, he's like a beast. And so I was afraid of him. I was afraid of those kind of guys.
After years of self-sacrifice and physical strain, Tom finally earns a championship victory with Davey Boy at WrestleMania 2.
New tag team champions, the British Bulldogs.
Now at the top of the pecking order, Tom is hell-bent on putting up-and-coming wrestlers through the same hard knocks he was once forced to endure.
He was a product of the Snake Pit in Wigan, guys who really knew how to hurt you in a hurry, and I don't know for a fact, but I'm assuming that Tommy had the crap beat out of him. And I think it created in him a resiliency and also maybe a little bit of bitterness to people who hadn't endured what he had to make it through. And I found that out firsthand.
From Bloomington, Indiana.
I showed up in Providence, Rhode Island with all of one match to my credit.
Jack Foley.
It's me and Les Thornton against the British Bulldogs. I was excited. I'm in the ring with, one of my heroes, Tommy.
Tremendous ovation.
I came in, I got a very, very quick education.
Holds him up there for a while.
Dynamite starts shaking the ropes like he couldn't wait to get in. And when he was tagged in, he sent me into the ropes. And he didn't so much clothesline to me as he clubbed me with his bicep in the jaw. And that was the last time I ate solid food for 3 weeks. I didn't know it at the time, but he had dislocated my jaw. I almost lost my career because of that. There were no hard feelings. I said it was such an honor being there with you guys, shook their hands, went back to my hotel room and threw up in the toilet.
Tom's appetite for violence soon spreads beyond the ring into the locker room and eventually into his home life, setting off a chain of events that shatters his career, his marriage, and ultimately his legacy.
So this is the matching cape and vest my dad wore in WWF in the British Bulldogs tag team. It has his name on the inside, well, it says Kid. And these were the original British Bulldogs from when I was little.
I used to play Barbies with those.
Yeah, this would be our Ken dolls.
From England, the British Bulldogs.
I really loved the Bulldogs, but I saw a few things happen that changed my opinion.
He was a ribber. He loved giving people a hard time, jokingly, which some people wouldn't think was jokingly. Some of the stuff was pretty stiff that he did.
He used to love to Alcy on people. One time, he Alcy on my mother.
Putting a sleeping drug into their drinks.
There was a guy called Mitch Snow.
It's our first look at Mitch Snow.
And the kid had a big mouth on him. He'd just talk shit. So Tommy gave him the househound gimmick.
Dynamite and Davey Boy went on the balcony.
Messed up.
To get into his room. And he crapped in his bag.
Shaved his eyebrows, shaved his head. The kid went back to his home in South Carolina somewhere because he was in fear of his life.
I think he almost had a nervous breakdown or something.
It's supposed to be a joke, and it's supposed to make people laugh.
Okay, it's funny now, but it's not funny when you're 23 days on the road. It's not funny when you lost your bags earlier that week. It's not funny when you haven't seen your kids in 20 days. It's not funny. It's not easy.
Good point.
Well, he wasn't like that when I first started going out with him or in the first 5 years of our marriage. There was none of that sadistic behavior. It started happening after his back operation.
During a non-televised match in 1986, Dynamite does a seemingly harmless drop down with his opponent. After years of being pushed past its limit, Dynamite's body finally breaks down.
Off of Sean.
Tom is rushed to the hospital with a severe back injury, requiring immediate emergency surgery.
When they opened him up, his fourth and fifth
We're still gonna
lumbar
be
was
big
just
size.
shredded.
We
And
increased
his
recently.
discs were all tangled in his spinal cord.
So they removed the disc, right?
2 discs.
He wasn't supposed to work anymore, you know, after the surgery. And I think he was back in the ring 2 weeks later.
Vince, you know, needed to take the titles off of him. He could not wrestle. Davey carried him to the ring. This is off camera. The television audience never saw this. I think he gets hit by the megaphone or something, but he got taken out right away.
Jimmy Hart on the other side of the ring, just striking Dynamite Kid from behind.
Davey worked the match, got pinned. They got the belts off of him.
No!
He got carried back to my car. When he got to my house, he went back in a wheelchair and stayed with me for a couple of days. He'd sleep on the floor, not because I didn't have a bed, but because that was the most comfortable place for him. My wife used to hear him crying in the middle of the night. It was like a whimper. I can't imagine how much pain he was in.
Contrary to doctor's orders, Dynamite rushes a return to the ring just months after the surgery. Wrestling in constant agony, his temper begins to spiral out of control, creating chaos at home.
When the times were good with Michelle and Tom, that was good. But did you ever see times when they were bad between them?
Yeah. I seen it.
There was one night when he was taking me out to show me a nice time. I didn't want to drink alcohol. So instead of saying I'm not drinking, because that would have been like a diss to Tom, I ordered a tonic water and put lemon in it. He'll think it's a vodka tonic. He grabbed my drink and he drank it and he just spit it out like as if it was poison. He said, "What the fuck is this?" And I was like, "It's tonic water." And he's like, "Tonic water? How come you're drinking tonic water?" He just wouldn't let it go. Like, he was so mad. And then all the way home, he was playing chicken on the road. A car would be coming and he'd act like he's gonna hit the car. And he'd say, "How could you fucking lie to me?" And I was like, "Sorry, I just didn't want to, like, drink. What's the big deal?" When we got home, I'm just about to go to sleep and he's like, "Fucking get up." And I was like, "What? What?" He's like, "Get up, get up."
Okay. Whew. Take a brief break from that story of a very troublesome time and get into a story of, well, a story of evil triumphing over good in this case. The 1%er, the $1 million man, Ted DiBiase, going up against Dynamite Kid. Dynamite is a very hot tag wrestler, has been crushing it, just got a pinfall victory last episode of, our Saturday Night Fever. So here on Sunday night, AWA, he doesn't have to defend his tag belts, he doesn't have to worry about, any tag competition, but he will be in contention for Smoky Mountain World Heavyweight title against Ted DiBiase. So we'll see how that goes. Who exactly? I guess we know who's going to come out on top, but we'll see how that goes for rating wise. major story they're trying to get across in this one is going to be of, the immovable force, the unstoppable machine. Dynamite is going to go at it with everything he's got. They're going to go with an all-out match style. Dynamite obviously can only go 15 minutes. You saw me shorten up the match there. So, they're going to go for it. They're going to put everything balls to the wall, and Dynamite's going to leave it all out there, as a babyface should. He's going to give it 100% of his effort. Ted DiBiase ultimately is going to be insurmountable of a task for our babyface tonight. But we'll get him some good time in the ring up against a world champion of excellent caliber.
And he shoved me in a closet. And he goes, "You fucking stay in there, you little yard dog." I slept on the floor, and I was glad that he wasn't bugging me. I was like, I'll sleep in the closet. Anyway, I find out I'm pregnant with our son. So after Merrick was born, he was, going to great lengths to make up for what he did, the closet incident. And Merrick was such a difficult child. Like, he was just really high maintenance. But Tom was so patient with him. So I think he really wanted to make up for that with Merrick. But, that didn't last.
The Dynamite Kid's home and work life have become increasingly volatile. After being forced to surrender the championship, Tom takes out his rage on another rising tag team in the WWF.
Vince called the Bulldogs and the Rougeaus. And he said, "Guys, I'd like to go ahead and have a great match with you four guys, and I'd like to have a 20-minute Broadway."
The time limit has expired. This contest is ruled a draw.
It was a draw. So for me, that was a victory because, it's like putting us in the same league as them, which we were not.
A draw indeed is a...
And Lord knows, after that match, I was so happy and everything was good. And I never thought I'd encounter problems with the Bulldogs.
Can you just tell us, since we were talking about this, what your understanding of the incident with the Rougeaus was?
So the Rougeau thing, I'm tired of it. I don't want to hear about it anymore. Like, is that the only thing that ever happened to him? When the Rougeaus came to WWF, they seemed to have this prestige right away. Tom had the old school way. You earn your right to have privilege.
I've always had an arrogance in me that made me succeed in the business. I never was a mean person, but I was a person who talked a lot and joked a lot, and not everybody liked to hear jokes, and that may not have helped my cause either. And I came in, I walked in the dressing room, and Perfect was sitting completely at the other end of the dressing room against the wall. As soon as I walked in, "Hey, Jacques, let's play cards." And he knew he got me because I'm a card player. The next thing you know, it's like, pow! And I fell down. And then I got back up, and then he really punched me in the face. Then he ended up kicking me in the face.
Jeez.
I was swollen up like the Elephant Man.
Made him look bad in front of the guys to the point where he told Mr. McMahon after the fact, like, he could no longer shave because he couldn't look himself in the mirror.
I was in bad shape mentally much more than physically. I didn't want to do what was coming. I just knew I had to.
What do you mean?
Get revenge.
And revenge he got.
In the days following Tom's brutal locker room assault, Jacques Rougeau anxiously plans his retaliation.
I had lost 10 pounds during that week, since Wednesday to Sunday, because I couldn't eat anymore. I was throwing up every time I'd think I had to fight. I wasn't sleeping well. I was afraid of what was coming.
Jacques was not a tough street fighter or anything. He just felt that he needed to get his respect back.
And you know what my father said? Before going to the building tomorrow, go to the bank and get yourself a roll of quarters.
Just hours before a television taping, Jacques lies in wait for Dynamite's arrival at the arena.
saw that curtain open. And I know Dynamite's coming. For the first time in a week, I looked at him in the eyes. And I said, "Hey, how you doing?" He had a coffee in his hand and he went. And I went, pow! You know when you're young and you see those monster movies where the blood is flowing out like a river? It's true. 4 teeth came out. And then I remember Dynamite Kid. I'm gonna fuck you! I'm gonna fuck you up! I'm gonna fuck you up! And then I said, the next time I'm gonna put you in a fucking wheelchair!
Was it roller quarters? I don't think so. I think it was a pair of brass knuckles.
I just
Yeah, it might
didn't
have been.
think what Tom had done deserved getting his teeth knocked out.
Tommy couldn't handle it. It bothered Tommy. His reputation had been damaged. I mean, here you got the guy that's tougher than nails get physically abused like that. You know, he wanted to beat the shit out of him, and then some, probably.
Tom's plan for revenge comes to a halt as Dino Bravo, a wrestler with alleged ties to organized crime, gives him a cautionary warning.
Tom bought a 9mm handgun with a clip for me. I was like, I don't want that gun. Like, I was so scared of it. He goes, look, I don't want to fucking scare you. I talked to Dino Bravo, and he said he saw an envelope with Tom's name, our address, and inside of it had a picture of our house, me and the kids. Like, if there's any retaliation, like anything, your family's gonna be dead. We sold our house because we were worried that the mafia, they knew where we lived and everything.
Jacques got his respect back. Dynamite never was allowed to get his respect back, I suppose you could say.
His life was never the same. He was never the same guy.
Dynamite's ex-wife says that Dynamite didn't get revenge on you because the mob would come after them. Is that true?
That is funny. But there's something I gotta tell you guys. I forgot about that. Now you're bringing it back. I didn't like Dino Bravo, but I knew he was a stooge. I knew he was a stooge for the Bulldogs. That whatever I said to him, he was gonna bring it back to the Bulldogs. I took a piece of paper and I wrote a name down. I wrote a fictive name, an invented name. And I told Dino, I said, so you see this name here? I gotta call him every night. And I said, if I don't call him one night, things will be taken care of. And I'm glad to hear that it worked.
They sold their house and moved because he wrote a name on an envelope.
Really made him not want to be a part of that company anymore.
Or he had an actual hit out
At the 1988 Survivor Series pay-per-view event, Tom decides to end his career in the WWF.
I don't think Dynamite was ever happy in WWF. He liked the respect he had in Japan. So it was like, we can cut a deal in Japan, we can get away from this thing.
Tommy was really hurting on that tour of Japan. But you would not have known it if you were a fan, because he was still giving 100%.
He started to say his arm was bothering him. But later I found out his ligaments weren't even on the bone. He got his shoulder operated on. It was terrible.
Schultz is good, dude. Schultz
he was
is having
upset with me because my girlfriend
nice
came over
performances.
He was like, "You just fucking talking to Sandra. You don't even fucking care about me." And I was like, "Yes, I
Gordy
do,
and
Tom."
Hayes put on 97s
And he starts going.
in a match where they lost to the
He
Steiners.
takes his supporting armband thing off.
Crazy
I was like,
good.
"Stop it!" And he's like,
Superb wrestling
I was
in
like,
good heat.
"Stop it!" All the shit we've been through, and you're like trying to set us back and wreck your arm. I didn't understand. Like, what the hell?
That's a 93,
With
folks. That's going
countless
to increase
injuries
some.
from years of
It's going to increase
self-inflicted
our
abuse in the
popularity.
ring, Tom's best days
Good
are
stuff.
now behind him.
Tom was slipping deeper and deeper, I'd say, into pills and drinking. This one night, he invited me to come watch wrestling. It was hours watching him and Tiger Mask. And he said, watch this. Took a F of a bubble. Just him and Tiger Mask all night long. That's my last memory of Tom. Being with him and watching the end of greatness.
Do you think after the incident with Jacques that something changed emotionally for Tom?
Well, after that, he hit quite a few people. No, he broke a few jaws.
It was New Year's Eve. It was about 10 o'clock, and Tom came in with his brother and a couple of friends that he went out with. And he had this white sweatshirt on, and it was just full of blood. And his cheek is like cut, and it's just the flap is just open, like you see his cheekbone. And he's got his sunglasses on. Bronwyn's crying, Daddy, Daddy, what happened?
I remember I was scared. I was like, what happened to Daddy?
He's like, I fucking fell down, little girl. Daddy's gonna be okay. Bronwyn never saw this stuff, but she was seeing it. And I was like, oh my God, I was feeling like such a failure, like as a mother. And now I'm pregnant and I'm gonna bring another child into this horrible life. I just couldn't take it anymore. And that's when I got like suicidal.
Been waiting for his
and
excursion to
walking around
end.
going, like, I just can't live
I'm so
another
excited.
freaking minute like this. And I finally decided that was it. And I gave
Not that
Tom
excited.
a one-way ticket to England.
Okay.
And I
We
said,
gotta
Tom,
let
I
him.
would like you to leave now.
Gotta let him come back.
Take
I
whatever you
guess.
need and just go. And then that's when the shit went down.
And my dad dragged my mom by the hair across the floor.
He lost his mind. He was like, he had me in some kind of hold and my jaw went out. He let me go and I was like, I put my jaw back. The kids were there. They had never seen anything like this and they were crying. I'm trying to act like, you know, Daddy's having a moment. It's gonna be fine. He's gonna leave. He goes, no, I think you should fucking go. And I was like, I'm the one pregnant. I'm the one with a toddler. Merrick was still in diapers. You know, all my stuff is here. All their clothes are here. And he went downstairs and he got a gun.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, if you're not out in 15 fucking minutes, I'm gonna blow your fucking head off. And I was like, no, you're not. He's like, I fucking will.
And my dad then put a shotgun up to my mom's head. And I was holding my little brother screaming, Daddy, no, Daddy, no.
They're hysterical. I'm not, though, because I'm like calling his bluff. And I'm like, no, you're not blowing my head off. If you're not going to leave, I'm calling the police. So I called the police and I said, my husband's threatening to blow my head off and I'm pregnant and I have children. And she goes, well, honey, if he said you could leave, just leave.
So ridiculous.
Oh, God. I was like, not again. Like, I didn't want to go to Brett and Julie's because like, I just didn't want to bring our bullshit over there again. But I did. I packed up my little bag.
But I did.
I left.
What else are you gonna do?
She was terrified that he was gonna come and who knows do what to her or any of us, you know? His headspace was not good at that time.
Michelle's harrowing experiences would stay a family secret for years until they were eventually exposed to the world, forever altering the legacy of the Dynamite Kid. In a final act of violence after holding his wife at gunpoint, Tom leaves his family behind in Calgary and returns to England.
He moved back to England in 1991. My mom was about 8 months, 7 months pregnant with me.
I wanted a girl because I had the perfect name. I had the name Amaris, and it means gift from God. And I believe Amaris saved my life. I believe she saved all our lives. That kid has been a blessing since the day she was born.
He just had his retirement match in Japan. Now he wrote a letter to Michelle saying that he was going to come to Calgary.
I really believe that Tom would come and see his baby. And thank God he didn't, because in the end, I think he did like he manned up and let us be. I think he knew there was something wrong with him. Like, he wasn't the same person. Like, this violence was out of control. I don't think he had control of it anymore.
After he finished wrestling, he was fighting in garages, just like a dog, like a pit bull.
It was just cars parked in a circle with lights on, and it was just bare nut fights. And he was doing those to survive.
Did he talk much about his family?
I knew you were going to ask me that. No, he didn't. Because
fucking
that was
dark.
just Tommy, his personal stuff wouldn't let people in. No, he didn't let me in because he didn't want to show me any sign of weakness. It's a macho thing, I know, but, had to keep that reputation, of not being a wimp.
5 years after his retirement, Tom returns to Japan for a comeback match.
The comeback match was real sad. He looked like a shell of the Dynamite Kid.
I think all of us kind of willingly suspend that state of belief in order to believe in a different reality, that we are who we're portrayed as being, and that we are that tough, and that we are immortal in some way.
One time he went to ambulate and he just hit the deck. Went to the hospital and he said, what about my fucking legs? And they told him he had too much scar tissue. Too much scar tissue to operate. So,
guys came to see him, and for the most part, he didn't want anyone to see him. The greatest wrestler who changed the business and everything like that, and this guy who at times could be an absolute monster, and then the absolute tragic ending. Way too young, when you're 40s in a wheelchair. It's just a sad thing from being this incredible athlete.
I felt so sad for him. Of course, I still loved him. I mean, God, you don't get married and have children and not still love him. Just didn't love what was going on.
She always talked about him like he was like a Prince Charming. She never said anything negative about him. It was always positive. And then the Chris Benoit documentary came out. I think I was about 16 years old. And that was the first time my mom talked about any kind of abuse in the relationship.
As part of a media frenzy sparked by the 2007 Chris Benoit tragedies, a CNN expose airs with focus on domestic violence perpetrated by wrestlers. Michelle is interviewed and for the first time ever details her stories of abuse at the hands of Tom Billington.
Michelle says at home the kid was out of control, at one time dragging her by the hair, holding a gun to her face.
He certainly wasn't the guy you fell in love with.
No.
The night before her interview, Michelle reveals to her children the complicated truths about their father.
I was just so mad. I was mad at my dad for hurting my mom because she's like the best woman ever. And I was mad at my mom because I felt like she lied to me about who my dad was. So when I found that there was actually abuse and a gun, she was pregnant with me at that time. That was the beginning of a very dark time in my life.
Despite promising Michelle he would visit his family, Tom would never return to Canada.
When I had my first child, I finally felt whole. I thought that she was everything that I was looking for. And eventually, that started to change again, and I didn't feel whole again. And I knew that it was my dad that I was missing.
She was like, flight's booked, I'm going, are you coming with me? And I said no.
I decided I was just gonna go see my dad without him knowing.
"15 years after Tom last saw his eldest daughter, Bronwyn travels to England to pay him a surprise visit.
Walked into the living room, and that's where my dad was sitting in his wheelchair, and that was the first time I'd ever seen him in a wheelchair. And I immediately just broke down crying. He acted like no time had passed, and he said, "Why are you crying?" I said, "Because I haven't seen you in 15 years. By the third day, it was just my dad and I. And I'm sitting on the couch, and my dad's in his wheelchair, and I was just looking at him like, I want to be close to him. So I took a chair and moved in, just sat right next to him. We held hands, and we started crying, and he said, "I'm sorry." And that was the only time he'd ever apologized for anything.
Whew, that's a
I
sweet
knew in that
moment.
moment what it meant. He didn't have to say anything else, and I just felt it. And it was a really beautiful moment that we shared, and I'm so happy that I went.
At the end there, I understand that, he's very sick.
He had a stroke too, right?
Yeah, I just know it was bad.
Do you remember when you heard the news that he had passed?
Yeah.
Tell me that story.
I can't. What do you want me? When you sit here and cry?
He was a great friend and somebody I cared about a lot. And I miss him. He loved his friends and he loved his kids.
We'll say this is probably going to be the last defense for the Raging Stampede. This brings them to their 12th defense. Owen picking up that final win as we start to see Owen, and we've already begun to see it with a singles title reign, but as we start to see Owen shine and break apart from his tag teams, we're going to start to see the decline of the Dynamite Kid. Kid's getting older. That's what they do.
And I love the Dynamite Kid.
They had a good match with the
I
Midnight.
knew it was coming, but I didn't cry for like a week. I was in shock.
I got a call from my mom. I think I was consoling her more.
Oh no.
And then right before we hung up, she said to me, "Well, now you know that he's right beside you." And I hung up the phone and I just started
This thing tore his bicep.
because that's all I ever wanted, was for him to be beside me.
The week before, Danny had tried to talk with him. And Danny said, "I love you." And Dynamite said, "Why?"
It brought home a lot of memories when he died of what an integral figure he was in the history of wrestling that probably he'll never get the full credit for, because telling that story is a sad story, not a happy story. You don't have that happy ending story.
Let it go. Let my kids heal. My kids can't heal with this kind of stuff. You know, and if you do talk about the violence, talk about CTE. Talk about the signs of depression. Don't knock him. Like, he could have came back.
Junkyard Dog's coming.
We could have perpetuated it, but we ended it. We did the right thing. And my kids did better without, you know, him around.
JYD coming soon.
Even though it pissed me off that he said, I hope my children are so proud of my body of work. And I said in my head, why don't you be a father? They don't need a wrestler. But now that I'm older, I understand that that's what he wanted to give the kids.
You know, he's largely been forgotten by the hands of time, but those who witnessed him in his prime, they'll never forget it. I remember Bruce Springsteen saying, trust the art, not the artist. And Tommy had a canvas, and he was brilliant. He's not the first, nor will he be the last to suffer for the sake of his art. And there's a sense that a lot of people who are great at something are not necessarily great at all aspects of their life, and they find solace in doing what they do, but they pay for that brief time. You become a bigger star than you ever imagined, and then you pay for it every day for the rest of your life.
Wow. Those are some heavy words by Mr. McFoley there. I think I'm going to end the stream there for now for this episode. Next episode, we're going to be doing Brian Pillman, and I'm actually going to film that here shortly. So if you're on YouTube, it'll be 1 week from the published date of this episode. If you're on Twitch, it's coming up here in just 20 minutes or so while I get ready for the next video. Alright. Peace out.